a transformation or a transition from one state to another, a condition or a phrase to another. For example, the change of seasons. It implies becoming different or undergoing alteration. Everything in life we have to know, my dear friends, that is subject to change. Governments are subject to change. The economy is subject to change. Relations are changing every now and then. People are prone to change. Life changes too. The only constant thing, my dear listener, is change itself. Change is inevitable, and therefore, as we move forward in life, we must expect change. When Moses, God's servant, died, according to Joshua chapter 1, Joshua experienced change. He stood the change because he had special qualities that enabled him to move on. As a family of believers, there are some qualities that we can learn from Joshua chapter 1, and this will help us to cope with change whenever it comes, and we can remain strong. To cope with change, therefore, and to stay strong, believers should, number one, go for the goal, according to Joshua chapter 1, verse 1 and 2. Joshua had only one goal in life, and that was to do the will of God. That is why when the loss and change came with the death of Moses, he was still able to hear from God and stay strong. Remember, he had been faithfully ministering to Moses, the servant of the Lord, and in so doing, he had proved himself a man of integrity who could be relied upon, no matter how hard the battle became. Then at the darkest hour of loneliness and loss, the Lord spoke to him, saying, "Now is the time to arise up and go over Jordan, leading the people towards the promised land." This was a transition time for Joshua. He managed because he had full focus of the goal in his life. Many people fail to cope with change and stay strong because they forget to keep their eyes fixed on the goal, no matter what happens. Having a goal, brethren, in life weaves four things into the fabric of our daily life. Number one thing, you'll realize that having a goal will create some passion, will create some emotion in you. Goals evoke emotion. A clear goal allows us to experience ahead of time the emotions of our future. Even a boring task can feel good if attached to a goal. A clear goal allows us to experience ahead of time the emotions of our future. The clearer the goal, the stronger the emotion. Another thing that goal weaves in our lives is motivation. Whenever we have a goal in life, we will be motivated, and even the dull things will begin to be exciting. They will begin to matter in our lives. Everyday details are done to achieve a task if you have a goal in life, as in you will be motivated. Another thing that a goal weaves in our lives is direction. The most practical advantage of a goal is that it gives us direction. It serves as a roadmap. Goals prioritize values. It keeps you doing the things that are most important. Without having a goal, brethren, good things will hinder you from doing the best things. People without goals are easily distracted. Another number 4 thing that a goal weaves in the fabric of our life is that goal brings purpose in our lives. It gives you a reason to get out of bed each day early. You become an important link between the present generation and the future. And therefore it is important, brethren, that we must go for the goal. Whenever challenges come, if we will have a goal in our life, then we will not be hindered. We will be strong enough to face the challenges, and we will be able to move on. We are saying that for believers to cope with change and to stay strong, number 2, we have to take one step at a time. According to Joshua chapter 1, verse number 3 to 4, we have to take one step at a time, brethren. Only what you reach out for will be yours. God's promises are conditional upon your obedience. We must take steps daily to live in the good of what God has promised, And remember, it takes time to reach the goals God has set. But if we are willing to take each step with courage and confidence, we will become what God has in mind for us. God's promises are conditional upon your obedience. The more you obey, the more you qualify for your next blessings. Joshua had to obey as a minister to Moses. And even after God speaking to him, it was Joshua's task to obey. You know, God was encouraging him. Have I not commanded you, be thou strong? Don't be afraid. Go for the goal. And Joshua obeyed the word of God, and he managed to cross the river Jordan, which was posing as a challenge before him, and he crossed over to Canaan. For believers to cope with change and to stay strong, number 3, we are saying that we must be aware of the power of God's presence, according to verse number 5 to 9. When we have the power of God's presence and the promise of victory, we can face all obstacles without fear, in courage and confidence, knowing that it is not us that our enemies have to face, but in reality of God in us. And therefore, brethren, trust in God. He has promised us that I will be there. I will not fail thee, not forsake thee. Trust in God because he has promised to be there with you. God commanded Joshua, be strong and of a good courage. Only be thou strong and very courageous. I want to believe when Joshua was conscious of the presence of God, he remained strong to face the challenges. Do not turn from the law of God to the right hand or to the left, that thou mayest prosper whithersoever thou goest. Keep the law in thy mouth. Meditate upon it day and night. You will be prosperous and you will have good success. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed. Isaiah 54 verse 17. We can also read Luke 9 verse 1, Luke 10 verse 19, 1 John 4:4. And all of these verses will encourage us that we need to continually trust in the Lord, because he has promised in his word to be on our side and to fight with us. Notice how much the Lord emphasized to Joshua that he must maintain a strong and victorious spirit, so that he will not be turned aside whenever things looked hopeless. He was commanded not to fear or be discouraged, because he had the power of God's mighty presence with him. Meditating daily in the word and speaking it out was the key to observing the will of God and assurance of prosperity in all that he did. What a difference when we allow the awareness of his presence to become a reality in our lives. We then become God conscious instead of problem conscious. We think entirely different to the old and regenerate way. Now we live out this life daily and become part of the answer to the need of our generation. We can at our own times read Matthew 5, 13 to 14, Romans 12 verse 2, Philippians 2 and verse 5. And you will be encouraged that as a believer, as one who trusts in God, you need to be encouraged. You need to be a source of encouragement. We need to go to those that are discouraged and encourage them and reaffirm the presence of God in their lives. We are saying, dear listeners, that to cope with change and to stay strong, believers should, point number 4, prepare to possess. We need to prepare to possess, according to verse number 10 to verse number 18 of first chapter of Joshua. Joshua was able to command, and what he said came to pass because he had obeyed the commandments of the Lord to him already. God told him to prepare to take the possession of what God had given. Notice all the family was to enjoy the inheritance. However, even though God had given it, they still had to fight the fight of faith, not with carnal weapons, but with spiritual weapons, according to 2 Corinthians 10:4. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. And therefore, even as we prepare to possess the blessings that God has given us, we need not to fight with the carnal weapons, but we need to engage the spiritual weapons of warfare, as we have been reminded in 2 Corinthians 10 verse 4. Our preparations are not of guns and artillery, but yielding to the will of God daily and putting on the armor mentioned in Ephesians 6. We must prepare well and leave no door open for the enemy to enter. Make sure the love of God flows through you, through your attitudes, actions, and words. Our motive for all our actions must be to please God and do His will. Remember, love is stronger than fear. Forgiveness is stronger than grudges. So let the divine nature work in yourself, according to 2 Peter chapter 1 verse 4. Then we will be able to not only possess our possessions of abundant life, but like Joshua, we will be able to bring many into their rightful possession also. Joshua enjoyed total victory because he knew how to completely obey. This is a new way of living. So don't be discouraged if it takes you some time to change your lifestyle and way of thinking. Just keep working it out at it, and you will stay strong while coping with change. God bless you so much.